into the place, and we measured everything, and we had a strategic plan, and we attracted great people, and we measured the performance of not just the playing group but the business side of it, and we took a few risks in the business side, and they paid off.
Welcome to the show. Tough times never last, but tough people do. Got a great man on the couch, Rod Butters. He needs no introduction. A very, very successful entrepreneur and also one of our former sporting heroes. That's right, Rod, isn't it? Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Oh, great pleasure, Michael. Thank you. I don't know that anyone's ever described me as a sporting hero before. You know, I played at the St Kilda Footy Club as a 15-year-old in their seconds, but I was pretty ordinary. Never made the seniors, but spent plenty of time in sport administration. So
indeed,
yeah,
well, that makes you a sporting hero because you've had a few wins.
Maybe
and then tell me the journey. You've become very successful. You've created a lot of successful businesses, and then also went through your own tough times.
Sure, yeah. Look, I was a really very shy kid, extraordinarily shy, and then played a bit of footy at the Saints, not that great, but I found business, and I really got very passionate very quickly about business. I bought my first company when I was about 27. I bought it for 50 grand, and I sold it 6 years later for 60 million.
Is that amazing?
That was ridiculous, and so I tried to retire at 37, unsuccessfully. I then scribbled some ideas on a bit of paper, and we sold that company 5 years later for 80 million. So I was running around thinking I was a genius, and that's when I went to the footy club, and I soon found out I was no genius. But I built a very strong team, to help us turn the Saints around.
Can you tell me how does that position? How was that created? Did they approach you to be the president?
No, Grant Thomas was a mate of mine. He went on to coach the club. He was a mate of mine, and we went and saw the Saints play at Waverley one day, and they gave up a 10-goal lead. And Tomo turned to me and said, "We've got to fix this joint." And we'd had a few beers. So we approached the president of the day, Andrew Picton, and we said we'd like to get involved, and Andrew was getting tired. So I ended up as president, Tomo ended up as coach after the Blighty fiasco, and we turned the place around. We built a great list, and we made a lot of money and very profitable. But it went to my head, and I was a young bloke. I was around 40. I had too much money, more money than sense, and I was buzzing around the world first class, and I ended up an alcoholic and a drug addict. And
isn't that amazing? And thanks for sharing. And I suppose all that business success you transferred into your role as the president, and you ran it like a very successful world-class business.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean, we brought business principles into the place, and we measured everything, and we had a strategic plan, and we attracted great people, and we measured the performance of not just the playing group but the business side of it, and we took a few risks in the business side, and they paid off. But it was really about bringing great people in, bringing very talented people in.
And Rod, life got so exciting for you, flying around business class and a few champagnes on the plane, and then getting there. And of course, when things get exciting, we want more excitement, and then we end up having a few lines of Coke places, and it makes you feel great, and the alcohol. So then you found it became an addiction?
Oh, that's right. Looking back, I'm now 7 years clean and sober, but looking back, I'm a flat out sort of guy. I mean, anything I do flat out, and that includes drinking and gambling and drugging and any other activity that involves addiction is just my personality. And for a long time, I was very high functioning. I had very successful businesses, the footy club, and I could present to the world as high functioning. But when those things were stripped away from me, and I lost the presidency of the footy club, a year later I married a girl, and that lasted 4 months, that marriage, and that got stripped away. All of a sudden I was naked, I was bare, I was emotionally raw, and what I found out was that I didn't have the emotional skills to cope with setbacks. I had the business skills, I had the people skills, I had the financial acumen, I could do a business deal, but I was an emotional retard, and I just couldn't cope with major setbacks. So I used drugs and alcohol, which worked for a long time. but they eventually stop working, and your life comes crashing down.
And Rod, during those difficult times when you realise the the sort of maybe lack of coping skills, the emotional breakdown. I mean, you're a very popular fellow. You're surrounded by hundreds of great friends and acquaintances. Do you then sort of look back and think, out of all those acquaintances, there might only be a few people that you can closely trust?
Oh, sure. I think I've heard it said that if you can count 5 close friends, on one hand, you're doing well. And I think it's human nature when you've got a bit of success and you've got a big house and you're throwing all the great parties, everyone wants to be involved. I think that's just human nature. And I don't think I ever believed that I had 100 friends, really. I was just having a lot of fun, and they were having a lot of fun with me. So I don't think I fooled myself that I had, a car park full of mates. But, when you get to the end and alcohol and drugs stop working, and you start that, we've talked about the rock bottom, you hit the rock bottom. It's a pretty lonely existence, and it's one where, I had to really dig deep and, search hard, and there were times when I felt like just let's end it. Let's just jump.
Isn't that amazing how the mind can take people then? And we've all been on that down. We've all been on the down. It just depends how low we get. What month and what year was that? Can you remember?
That was the 27th of August 2009.
Okay.
Was my rock bottom.
And that's when you realised it's time to get up and go. And
I wouldn't describe it as an experience or a feeling of time to get up and go. I was gone. It was a surrender. I was beaten to a pulp. I'd had enough. I couldn't function any longer. And quite serendipitously, I'd met a fellow at a party a few weeks earlier who he wasn't drinking or drugging, and yet he was at a party in my social network, which was rather odd, and I bumped into him in the street, and there was something different about him. And I told him that I was in a lot of trouble emotionally, that I'd been using a lot of drug and alcohol, and he shared with me his story of recovery, and I identified. And so I got some hope.
It's an amazing synchronicity how the laws of the universe work sometimes. But thanks for sharing. It's amazing. And thank you very much for watching. We'll be back very shortly. Thank you very much for watching. Rod Buttis on the couch, a very decent, down-to-earth and authentic fella. I really like him. He's sharing his success and also how to get through the difficult times. Rod, the marriage, it was a short one.
Yeah.
But do you think because you were going through your own issues at the time, you couldn't give enough of what she was after?
Sure. I think looking back again at the cycle of addiction and how addiction works, when I was rampant in terms of my drug and alcohol use, I was really quite insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just doing, what you're doing is not sane. Yeah. It's insane, the way you're living. And, so being that insane, it was all about me. I was selfish and I couldn't get enough. And really, the concept of love in that situation is warped, because it's an unhealthy environment. And in the end, she just said, I can't do this anymore. And I had enough awareness to know I was in deep trouble, with my addiction. So it was almost initially a sense of relief. There was an intuitive sense of relief.
And that probably added to the pressure as well then when you sort of, in the next sort of few months being by yourself?
Yeah, well, I jumped on a yacht and I sailed around Asia, and I was thinking that would fix the problem, but the problem was in here.
Right. Right.
So it didn't matter where I went, what part of the world.
Because a lot of people try to escape, don't they?
That's right.
You see that everyone going to the Gold Coast and then coming back.
That's right. We call it geographicals. I mean, we try and get away from the problem, but we take the problem with us. So, I then, as I said earlier, quite serendipitously bumped into a fellow. His name was Mark, and he didn't drink or drug. And I found that quite odd because I thought everybody drank and drugged. I really did. And he didn't drink or drug. And he told me his story. He'd been managing a rock star musician who'd sold 40 million records in the UK, and he ended up with a serious cocaine addiction. And then he introduced me to another mate whose name was David, and he had a very serious heroin addiction. And they just shared with me what they did. They just told me what they did to overcome addiction. And I was so broken. I was so messy. I was so childlike. I just said, what do I do now? And they said, you go to a meeting, a recovery meeting. What do I do now? Have a shower. What do I do now? Come and...
Isn't that amazing?
And you just slowly...
You got a beginner's mind again.
Yeah. You're like a student.
From the, successful person that everybody listened to, and all of a sudden you become a student, but you hadn't been a student for a long time. You were given the orders. You created.
Well, that's right. When you're an addict, you believe your own bullshit. Your mind tells you lies, and you believe it. That tomorrow will be different. Well, my tomorrow lasted 10 years, and it was never any different. So in the end, the insanity of that is such that your self-esteem gets stripped bare. And you're no good. Addicts aren't bad people. They just do bad things. And this is an area that I'm really agitating government here in Victoria to understand. Stop treating addicts like criminals. Like if they break the law, we've got to lock them up. I get that. But let's stop treating them like criminals. Let's start treating them like mental health patients and help them to get recovery and get them back into the workforce and get them to be the parents that they want to be.
That's great advice, because isn't it amazing how judgmental society is? Somebody has so much work pressure. They might be going through a divorce, and they might be drinking or taking drugs, and they're acting a bit differently away from normal, and people think, oh, they're acting normal, and they back away, but we're a very judgmental society, aren't we?
Well, we are, and I think that it's easy to judge. It's easy to put someone in a box. It's easy to label. And it's sad because, in Victoria last year, 479 people died from overdose in Victoria. In Richmond alone, it was something like 120 people.
That's amazing.
In King's Cross, where they've got a safe injecting room, 0. So how can our state government sit by and pretend this isn't a problem? People are dying, children are being orphaned, families are being traumatised. The cost to society is massive because we have such weak leadership in this state where people aren't prepared to take on the tough issues. And there are models all around the world that have proven that there's answers. We just need the courage and the backbone.
It's amazing we've got somebody of your calibre and your intelligence to get real about this and to inspire change. Congratulations. So with that advice from meeting those lovely gentlemen, what did you do next?
I picked up a drink. Because I'm an addict, and
I celebrated too.
Yeah, I went to my first meeting, recovery meeting, and I got 24 hours of clean time, and so I picked up a drink, and that lasted 3 weeks. So I rang Mark back and I said, you wouldn't believe it, I've been drinking for the last 3 weeks. He said, what do you mean I wouldn't believe it? You're an addict. Of course you're going to drink. So it's...
What were you drinking?
Alcohol, red wine, whatever I get my hands
on.
So he explained to me the pathology of addiction, what happens, how the mind works. And left unattended, I will pick up a drink. And that's why I do a lot of recovery meetings and I do a lot of work in the recovery space with new people and young people trying to get clean. Fantastic. Because it keeps me engaged, it keeps me current, if you like, because like a hairdresser cuts hair.
Yes.
A motor mechanic fixes motors. An alcoholic drinks alcohol. That's how it is. Now, I may not have had a drink for 7 years, but I'm just as susceptible as picking one up if I don't maintain a program of recovery.
So at a social meeting, you won't have a glass of champagne?
Oh, God, no. No, I can't drink.
And do you feel much better?
Oh, I love life, yeah.
What about if we went to Richmond and visited a good mate and just had a quick line of Coke?
No, well, I probably wouldn't get home for 3 weeks. And and I might end up in bed with your girlfriend. And we don't need that.
We don't need that. We'll be back very shortly. Thank you very much for watching. He's a terrific fellow and he's going to make a lot of change in this country. Don't go away. Thank you very much for watching. Rod, you're a very kind-hearted fella. Were you always that way?
Yeah, look, I was. That's just something that I think was always part of who I am. But it got very messy when I was in active addiction.
Sure.
Because active addiction is characterised by selfishness.
During the difficult times when you were really suffering, did business ever hit?
Oh yeah, I lost everything. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I blew the lot, and it was a big number, so I was a bit embarrassed to talk about it. But it's just life, you know.
Life.
I made some ridiculously foolish decisions.
We all walked past that beautiful place that changed colours there on the beach there.
Yeah.
You know, and tell me about your life now. You've 7 years ago you picked up and you're a businessman, a successful businessman. But you're also doing a lot of community work.
Yeah, look, to stay sober, it's really important for me to work with other addicts and to work with people that want to get well, and to return the favour. I mean, strangers walked next to me to show me how to get well, and the least I can do is to walk next to someone that says, "Hey Rod, I want what you've got. Can you show me how to do it?"
That's beautiful.
And I don't go to bars anymore, and I used to drink for 6 to 8 hours a day, so I've got 6 to 8 hours spare. So I need to use that productively, and that's what I do.
And Rod, tell me about your life now. How do you feel your days?
I'm building a new business in the IT space and the consulting and executive search space, which is the industry that I've spent most of my life in, so I'm very passionate about that. I've got a gorgeous partner, and we spend time walking on Elwood Beach with our boxer puppy Pepper. And
how long have you been with this lovely lady for?
3 years now.
Terrific.
Yeah, and she's a great girl. But I live a very simple life. You know, in the past it was all first class, aeroplanes, New York, London, Paris, this, that, A-list, red carpet, and, you know, I mean, a lot of those people are pretty boring, and I had to drink a lot and take a lot of Coke just to cope with them. But now I have a simple life, and I'm very interested in meditation and some of the Eastern philosophies around wellness and reflection.
I can feel your energy. Yeah. I've been meditating for 20 years. It's a great tool for clearness. Yes. Calmness, clarity, emotional detachment.
Yes,
isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I've also learned to reflect.
Yes.
So at the end of a day, I just take a few minutes out to reflect. How was I today? You know, do I owe anyone an apology? Was I fair and decent? You know, just a bit of reflection.
And I bet you do. You show gratitude in the mornings as well.
Oh, enormous gratitude.
Yeah,
I should be dead. You know, I somehow managed to overcome the disease of addiction, which kills people, and it kills innocent people. I mean, try living with an addict. That's hard work, and families get destroyed. They get damaged emotionally. You know, living with an addict is bloody difficult, you know, because we're unpredictable.
What's your advice to, number one, addicts who know they've got a problem, but they're not quite ready to give up yet?
Well, you know, we often say that to an addict, you're on an elevator and you're heading down to the basement. Do you want to go all the way to the basement, which is probably a morgue, an institution or a jail? That's where you'll end up. Or do you want to get off on the third floor and maybe save your life and improve the life of your family and friends? Because we're pretty ordinary people when we're in addiction. We're not pleasant. We're selfish.
So say there are some young or older people watching. They might really hit the grog, and they know they're functioning alcoholics, or they might be on ice or cocaine addictions. And what services are there?
Oh, there's so much. There really is. I mean, you've really only got to put your hand up and go to Google or ask around, and there's so much support, and it's free.
But people, they have to be ready, don't they?
Yeah, you've
got to be ready.
You've got to be ready, and most of us need to hit the absolute rock bottom before that silly thing sits on my shoulders. Is ready to. But the more we talk about it, the more we open it up and demystify it and treat it for what it is. It's a disease. It's a mental health disorder. You're not a bad person. You're just sick. And my message is, put your hand up, get online, ask for help, and you'll be amazed. People will surround you, and they'll take you to recovery meetings, and they'll support you.
So what you're saying, Rod, even though we might be broken and maybe suicidal, we can heal the mind, and we can rebuild the self-esteem.
Oh, yeah. And self-esteem comes from doing esteemable acts, helping others.
Yes.
And, I remember when I had 7 cars, a huge house, and all the toys, I was miserable. I really was miserable. I didn't enjoy life, I might enjoy life for 24 hours if I bought a new car or if I had a new mistress, but that's not what life was about. And, I needed to take a lot of drugs and alcohol just to be functioning and just to be okay.
So it's quite right then when people say that the Eastern philosophy is quite important. In the West, we think happiness is very much based on externals, whereas East is very much. We go to Thailand and Bali, we see people in sheds being happy and celebrating, don't we?
Yeah, and I think for me, I looked at happiness as the car, the house, the title, the status, the girl on my arm. Now in recovery, I still want to build a successful business.
Of course.
I still want to have some nice things. Nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
But I derive my self-esteem from other areas.
But I couldn't imagine Rod Butters in cattle class.
No. Oh yeah. No, I do it. Yeah, no, I do it. I flew to India last year, cattle class. You get used to it. It's a humbling experience, but it's fine.
You're so humble. And when do you meditate?
Well, I've just started doing a weekly Buddhist meditation class in Beaumaris, and which is nearby, and ideally I'd meditate every morning for 10 or 15 minutes, but I'm not that disciplined, so I might do every second or third morning. But I've learnt to meditate throughout the day, just for a few seconds.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're a beautiful human being.
Thank you.
And I hope that the government changes their views and that we can get a lot more addicts into recovery.
I hope they grow some backbone and start treating addiction for what it is.
That's very important.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, thanks very much for watching, folks. He's a terrific fella, and we'll be back next week. All the best, love and best wishes. Good night.